Claire woke up early in the morning with a heavy heart. The sun was just rising, painting the small apartment with a pale light. She looked at her little boy, Ethan, who was still sleeping peacefully on the old couch. She had an important interview that day, and it could change their lives if she got the job. The problem was that she had no one to leave Ethan with. Her neighbor who sometimes helped was out of town. The daycare she used once before was closed. She stood for a long time wondering what to do, but in the end she knew she had no choice. She would take Ethan with her. She dressed in her best clothes, though they were not new. The jacket was a little worn and the shoes had scratches, but she cleaned them as best as she could. She wanted to look professional, but her eyes carried the weight of years of struggle. After getting ready, she carefully woke Ethan and gave him a small breakfast. He smiled at her with his messy hair and sleepy eyes. "Are we going out today, Mom?" he asked. "Yes, sweetheart, Mommy has something very important today." "You have to be on your best behavior," she said, as she smoothed his shirt. Ethan nodded with a big smile, proud to be trusted with something important. They took the bus across town. Claire's heart raced with every stop. She looked at her reflection in the window and practiced her answers in her head. She thought about how much she needed this job. Bills were piling up, rent was late again, and she could not stand the look on Ethan's face when he saw her worry. This job meant stability, food on the table, and maybe even a better school for her son. When they arrived, the tall building stood in front of them like a giant. "Ooh." Claire held Ethan's hand tightly as they entered through the glass doors. The lobby was polished and busy, filled with people in suits walking quickly. Claire felt out of place but kept her chin up. At the reception desk, she told her name and purpose. The receptionist raised an eyebrow when she saw Ethan, but said nothing, and directed her to the waiting area. Claire sat nervously, holding her folder of papers close to her chest while Ethan swung his legs, trying to stay quiet. After a few minutes, a man in a gray suit came out of the hallway and called her name. She stood, smiled politely, and walked toward him with Ethan at her side. The man looked down at the boy, frowned, and then looked back at Claire. "Who is this?" he asked with a sharp tone. "This is my son, sir. I could not find anyone to watch him today, but he will sit quietly, I promise," Claire explained quickly, her voice shaking. The man shook his head. "Cannot allow children in interviews. It is unprofessional. You should have arranged something. I am sorry, but this will not work." Claire's face turned pale. She had prepared for weeks, rehearsed her answers, and hoped for a chance to prove herself. Now, all of it was falling apart because she was a mother. She tried to speak again, but the man was already turning away, dismissing her like she did not matter. She felt the sting of rejection deep in her chest. Her throat burned and her eyes filled with tears she did not want Ethan to see. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "Come on, honey, let's go." Ethan looked up at her, confused. "Did I do something wrong, Mom?" he asked softly. "No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. Mommy just has to keep trying," she said with a weak smile, though her heart was breaking inside. They began walking toward the exit, the polished floor echoing under their worn shoes. Claire kept her head down to hide her shame. The whispers of people in the lobby seemed louder than before, like everyone was judging her. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to scream. She wanted to fight for her chance, but the door was already closing behind her. As she pushed the glass door open and stepped into the cold air outside, she felt the weight of defeat pressing on her shoulders. She looked down at Ethan, who was holding her hand tightly, trusting her without question. In that moment, Claire made a silent promise to herself. She would not give up. No matter how many doors closed in her face, she would find a way to give her son a better life. The city noise surrounded them, cars rushing past, and people moving quickly. But Claire and Ethan stood still on the sidewalk for a moment. She took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and held her son close. Inside her heart, the fire of determination still burned, even in the shadow of rejection. Claire held Ethan's hand as they stepped out of the glass doors of the company building. Her heart was heavy, and she tried to keep her face strong, but inside, she was broken. The chance she had prayed for had slipped away before it even began. She wanted to cry, but she would not let Ethan see her tears. As they walked toward the street, a voice called out behind them. It was deep and calm, carrying authority that made people stop and look. "Excuse me, miss, why are you leaving so soon?" Claire froze. She turned slowly and saw a tall man walking into the building. He wore a dark suit that looked expensive, and every person in the lobby seemed to notice him. His steps were confident, his gaze steady. She did not know who he was, but the way the receptionist straightened and the employees whispered told her he was important. The man stopped near the doors, his eyes moving from Claire to Ethan, then back to her. "Were you here for the interview?" he asked. Claire's lips parted, but no sound came out. The hiring manager who had rejected her hurried over, his face nervous. "Mr. Nathan, this woman was scheduled for an interview, but she brought her child." "I thought it best to dismiss her at once," the man explained. The tall man, Nathan, narrowed his eyes. He looked at Ethan, who was holding his mother's hand tightly. Then he looked back at Claire. "You dismissed her because she brought her child?" he asked, his voice quiet but sharp. "Yes, sir." "It is not professional," the manager answered quickly. A silence spread in the lobby. People stopped walking, waiting to see what would happen. Claire felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to vanish, but Nathan's gaze held her in place. "Responsibility for family is not unprofessional," Nathan said firmly. "It shows strength. It shows discipline. If she managed to come here with her child, it means she values this opportunity enough to fight for it." Claire blinked in shock. No one had ever spoken for her like that. She squeezed Ethan's hand, who looked up at the tall man with wide eyes. The manager stammered, "But sir, company policy, I make the policies." Nathan cut him off. "I will decide who gets a chance here." He turned to Claire. His expression softened a little. "What is your name, Claire?" she whispered, almost afraid to speak. "Claire," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "Come back inside. Your interview is with me now." Claire's eyes widened. "Sir, I don't want to cause trouble. I can leave and try somewhere else." Nathan shook his head. "Sit down with me. Came all this way. Let me hear you." Ethan tugged on his mother's sleeve and whispered, "Mom, is he nice?" Nathan crouched slightly, lowering himself to Ethan's level. "I try to be," he said with a small smile. "What's your name, young man?" "Ethan," the boy said shyly. "Ethan, will you be my helper while I talk to your mom?" Nathan asked. Ethan nodded quickly, a grin spreading across his face. Claire's heart softened at the sight. People in the lobby were still watching, whispering among themselves. Claire felt every pair of eyes on her, but for the first time she did not feel ashamed. She felt seen. Nathan straightened and gestured toward the hallway. "Come with me." Claire hesitated for only a second before following him. Ethan skipped at her side, excited as if they were going on an adventure. The hiring manager stood frozen, his face pale, realizing he had just been overruled. As they walked deeper into the building, Claire's nerves returned. She wondered why this man was giving her a second chance. She wondered if it was real, or if she would still end up being pushed aside. But when she glanced at Nathan, his calm stride and strong presence gave her a strange feeling. It was not pity she saw in his eyes. It was respect. They reached a large office with tall windows that looked out over the city. Nathan opened the door and gestured for Claire and Ethan to enter. "Sit," he said kindly. Claire sat in the chair opposite his desk, holding her folder tightly. Ethan climbed into the chair next to her, his legs swinging happily. Nathan sat down and leaned back in his chair, studying Claire for a moment. "Let us begin. Tell me about yourself. Tell me why you want to work here." Claire's breath caught in her chest. This was her chance. Her second chance. She straightened her back, held Ethan's hand under the table, and began to speak with all the courage she had left. Claire sat stiffly in the chair across from Nathan, her hands tight around the folder she had prepared. She had thought the day was ruined, yet here she was, facing the CEO himself. Her heart pounded, but she reminded herself she had to be strong. This was not just about her, it was about Ethan too. Nathan leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady but not harsh. "Tell me about yourself," he said.
Why do you want this job?"
Claire took a deep breath. "My name is Claire. I studied business administration in college, but had to stop when I became a mother. Since then, I have worked different jobs to support my son. None of them were stable, but I always gave my best. I am looking for something steady, a place where my effort will matter. I believe this company could be that place." Her voice trembled slightly at the end, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. Nathan nodded slowly. "And what skills do you bring?" Claire opened her folder and showed her papers. "I've worked in customer service, bookkeeping, and sales. I know how to organize schedules, manage accounts, and solve problems quickly. I may not have the longest resume, but I have real experience handling pressure." As she spoke, Ethan leaned closer to the desk, curious about the large room and the view outside the window. He whispered loudly to his mother, "Mom, his office is bigger than our whole house." Claire's face flushed. She looked at Nathan, expecting him to be annoyed, but instead he let out a small laugh. "He is honest," Nathan said. "That is a good trait." Ethan grinned and swung his legs under the chair, happy to be included. Claire continued, her confidence growing. She explained how she had once managed a store by herself for 3 weeks when her manager quit suddenly. She told him about the time she stayed late to finish tasks others left undone. She described the way she handled angry customers with calm words until they left satisfied. Nathan listened without interrupting. He watched her closely, noticing the determination in her eyes. When she finished, he folded his hands. "You said you had to stop school when you became a mother," he said. "Do you regret that?" Claire hesitated, then shook her head. "No, I do not regret my son. It has been hard, but he is the reason I keep pushing forward. If I had to choose again, I would choose him every time." Ethan squeezed her arm, not fully understanding but sensing her love. Nathan's eyes softened. Responsibility like that is rare. Most people would give excuses. You give honesty. Claire felt her throat tighten, but she kept her composure. "How do you see yourself growing here if you are given the chance?" Nathan asked next. "I want to learn," Claire said firmly. "I want to prove myself. I do not expect special treatment. I only want the same chance as anyone else. If I am given tasks, I will finish them. If I am given goals, I will reach them." The room grew quiet. Ethan tapped his fingers on the armrest, humming softly to himself. Claire looked down at him and felt her strength return. Nathan leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. "You speak with conviction, but can you handle the demands of this company? The hours can be long. The work is not easy." Claire answered without hesitation. "I have faced worse. Long hours do not scare me. Being ignored, being underestimated, being told I cannot do something that is what I know too well. I am ready to prove the opposite." Nathan studied her for a long moment. The determination in her eyes did not waver. Finally, he nodded. "Very well," he said. "I believe in giving people chances when they earn them. I want to see how you work. I will place you on a trial period here. If you succeed, you will earn a permanent position." Claire's heart leaped. She almost could not believe what she heard. "Thank you," she said quickly, her voice filled with emotion she struggled to hide. Ethan clapped his hands without understanding the details, only sensing the joy in his mother's voice. "Yay, Mom got the job," he cheered. Nathan smiled faintly at the boy's excitement. It is not the full job yet, but it is a beginning. Claire stood holding her folder close. Her knees felt weak, but her spirit was stronger than ever. She looked at Nathan, wanting to say more, but the words stuck in her throat. Finally, she managed to quiet, "I will not let you down." Nathan's gaze was calm, steady, and unreadable. "I see that you do not," he said, though there was no harshness in his tone. As Claire and Ethan walked out of the office together, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter than it had in years. She did not know what the future would bring, but for the first time in a long time, hope burned brightly in her chest. Claire started her first day at the company with nervous energy. She wore the same jacket she had used for the interview, but pressed it neatly the night before. She had left Ethan with a kind neighbor who promised to watch him while she worked. It was not a perfect solution, but it gave her the chance to focus. When she arrived, the office was buzzing with people at their desks. Some greeted her politely, but others gave her curious looks. A few whispered to each other, and she knew rumors about her unusual interview with the CEO had already spread. She ignored the stares and went to the desk assigned to her. It was small, tucked in a corner, but to Claire, it felt like a doorway to a new life. Her tasks were clear. Organize reports, check schedules, and prepare files for meetings. It was a mountain of work, but she dove in with determination. Hours passed quickly as she typed, sorted, and double-checked everything. Her fingers ached, yet she did not slow down. Around noon, a woman from the next desk leaned over. "You are the one who came with the kid, right?" she asked with a half-smile. Claire forced a polite nod. "Yes, that was me." The woman chuckled softly. "People are saying the boss must have liked you a lot to give you a chance. Not everyone gets to meet him face to face." Claire kept her focus on her papers. Only want to do my job well, that is all. The woman shrugged and turned back to her work, but Claire could still feel the eyes of others on her. Whispers carried across the room, and though no one spoke directly, she knew many believed she had been given special treatment. Later that day, Claire was summoned to a meeting. She entered the large room, carrying the prepared reports. Nathan was already there, seated at the head of the table. His presence filled the room, commanding attention without a word. He looked up when she entered, his eyes meeting hers for a moment before shifting back to his notes. Claire placed the reports neatly in front of each manager. She stayed quiet, listening as the meeting began. The managers discussed numbers, deadlines, and strategies. Claire followed carefully, her mind working to keep up. When one manager struggled to explain a scheduling problem, Claire spoke softly, offering a solution she had seen while preparing the files. The room went silent. Several people looked at her with raised eyebrows. The manager frowned, ready to dismiss her, but Nathan leaned forward. "Repeat that," he said. Claire steadied her voice. "If you move the shipment date by 1 day and adjust the distribution list, you will save 2 days of delay and avoid paying the penalty fee." Nathan tapped his pen on the table, then looked at the manager. "Is she correct?" The manager checked quickly, and his face reddened. "Yes, sir, she is correct." A faint smile touched Nathan's lips. "Good observation," he said to Claire. Claire lowered her eyes, not wanting to appear proud, but inside she felt a spark of pride. After the meeting, as everyone left, Nathan stopped her. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Do not be afraid to speak when you see solutions. It shows initiative." "Thank you, sir," Claire replied softly. She returned to her desk, working until the evening. When she finally left the building, the city lights had already turned on. Her feet were sore, her body tired, but she carried a sense of accomplishment she had not felt in years. That night, she picked up Ethan from the neighbor's apartment. He ran into her arms, hugging her tightly. "Mom, how was work?" he asked eagerly. Claire smiled down at him. "It was busy, but it was good. We are going to be fine." As days turned into weeks, Claire settled into her role. She worked hard, often staying later than others to finish tasks. She earned respect from some coworkers, though a few still whispered. What mattered most was that she was proving herself. Nathan often passed by her desk. Sometimes he stopped to ask a question. Other times he only observed. Claire noticed the way his eyes lingered, thoughtful, as if he was studying more than just her work. She tried to keep her head down, but every glance from him made her heart beat faster. She reminded herself it was only a job, that she could not afford distractions. But late at night, when she lay awake listening to Ethan breathe, she found herself thinking of the man who had given her a chance when no one else would. And in his office high above the city, Nathan found himself thinking about her too. He had met countless people, yet something about Claire stood out. It was not pity that drove his interest. It was respect, and perhaps something more he could not yet name. Claire arrived at work early, as she always did. She wanted to stay ahead of her tasks and prove her worth. She carried herself with quiet confidence, but the whispers around her had grown louder in recent days. Some coworkers respected her, but others watched her with suspicion. She only got the job because of the boss. One woman muttered near the coffee machine. "Yes, the CEO is protecting her. No wonder she gets noticed," another replied. Claire heard the words even when she pretended not to. Each one cut deep, but she kept her head down and worked harder. She told herself that effort would silence the doubts. Still, the stares followed her, and she began to feel the weight of judgment pressing on her shoulders. Later that week, a mistake appeared in one of the reports. A shipment schedule had been delayed, and the blame was placed on Claire. She knew she had double-checked everything, yet the error had slipped through. The manager in charge raised his voice in front of the team. "You cannot afford mistakes like this," he said sharply. "Cannot carry people who are not reliable." Claire stood frozen, shame rising inside her. She wanted to explain, but she also did not want to sound defensive. Before she could speak, another worker muttered, loud enough for others to hear, "Of course, she will not be fired. The boss likes her too much." The room grew tense. Claire felt every eye on her, judging, doubting. Her face burned, and her hands trembled as she gathered the papers. That night, she returned home exhausted. Ethan noticed the sadness in her eyes. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, holding her arm. Claire forced a small smile. I am fine, sweetheart. Work was hard today, but I will handle it. The truth was, she felt like quitting. She could not stand being seen as weak or favored. She wanted to prove she belonged, but the whispers seemed endless. 2 days later, Ethan became sick with a fever. Claire stayed up all night by his side, wiping his forehead with a damp cloth. In the morning, she knew she could not leave him alone. She called the office asking for a day off. Her voice was tight with worry, afraid that this would be held against her. She stayed home, feeding Ethan soup and reading to him until he fell asleep. As she sat by the window, staring at the city lights, a knock came at the door. She opened it and froze. Nathan was standing there, holding a bag. I heard your son was sick, he said simply. Claire's heart raced. Sir, you should not be here. This is my home. I know, Nathan said calmly. But I brought some medicine and food. Children need more than rest when they are sick. He stepped inside when she moved aside, placing the bag on the table. Ethan stirred awake and looked at him with sleepy eyes. Hello, Ethan, Nathan said gently. I brought something to help you feel better. Ethan smiled faintly. Thank you. Claire watched, stunned. She had never imagined the CEO of a great company would visit her small apartment. He sat on the edge of the couch, speaking softly to Ethan until the boy drifted back to sleep. When the room grew quiet, Claire whispered, You did not have to come. I do not want to cause trouble for you. Nathan shook his head. You are not trouble. You are an employee who works harder than most. And you are a mother who carries more weight than many could bear. Do not let others' words break you. Tears filled Claire's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. People think I only have this chance because of you? Then prove them wrong, Nathan said firmly. Work harder, stand taller, and let results speak for you. In time, no one will question what you earned. Claire stared at him, her chest heavy with emotion. No one had ever spoken to her with such conviction, not even when she doubted herself. Nathan stood to leave. Take care of your son. When he is well, return to work. Your place is still there. Claire followed him to the door, her heart racing with unspoken words. When he stepped out into the night, she closed the door slowly, leaning against it. She looked back at Ethan, sleeping peacefully, and felt a spark of strength return. She knew the path ahead would not be easy. The whispers would continue, the judgment would linger, and now she had a reason to fight harder. Not just for herself, not just for Ethan, but also for the chance given to her by the man who believed when no one else did. The days after Ethan's illness passed slowly, but Claire returned to work stronger than before. She worked with quiet focus, finishing every task with care. The whispers had not stopped, but she had learned to ignore them. Still, she felt a change inside her. She no longer wanted to just survive. She wanted to rise. Nathan continued to watch her from a distance. He never said much, but his eyes often found her in the office. He noticed how she stayed late, how she spoke kindly even when others were harsh, how she carried a strength many people lacked. Each time he passed her desk, a thought pressed heavier on his mind. One evening, the office grew quiet as most workers had gone home. Claire stayed behind, typing the last of her reports. She rubbed her tired eyes, unaware that Nathan was still in his office. Finally, he stepped out, walking toward her desk. You should go home, he said gently. It is late. Claire looked up, startled. I just want to finish this before tomorrow. Nathan leaned on the edge of her desk. You always want to finish everything, but you must also rest. Your son needs you strong. Claire lowered her gaze. I know. I just want to make sure no one can say I did not work hard enough. Nathan studied her for a moment, then spoke with quiet strength. Claire, you do not need to prove yourself to those who whisper. You only need to prove yourself to yourself. You already have. Claire froze, unsure how to respond. Her heart beat faster as she realized his words carried more than professional respect. Silence filled the room. The city lights shone through the tall windows, painting the office in a soft glow. Nathan straightened, his eyes steady on her. I admire you, he said finally. Not just as an employee, but as a woman. I have met many people who give up when life is hard, but you did not. You carried your son through struggles most could not imagine. You walked into this building with nothing but courage. That is something rare, something I cannot ignore. Claire's breath caught in her throat. Sir, she hesitated, searching for words. I respect you. I am grateful for what you did for me, but I cannot mix work and feelings. It would not be right. Nathan did not move closer, but his voice grew firm. Do you think I cannot separate respect from favoritism? I gave you a chance because you deserved it, not because of anything else. What I feel now has nothing to do with your job. It has to do with the person you are. Claire looked away, her hands trembling slightly. If people find out, they will say worse things about me. They will say I only succeeded because of you. Before Nathan could answer, Ethan's small voice echoed in the quiet. He had come into the office, running down the hallway where Claire had let him play after daycare. "Mom," Ethan said, holding a toy car in his hand. Then he looked at Nathan. "Are you going to be my friend forever?" The simple question broke the tension. Nathan crouched down, meeting Ethan's eyes. "If you will let me, Ethan," he said softly. Ethan grinned and nodded. "Yes, you are nice." Claire felt tears sting her eyes. Her son had spoken with innocent honesty, saying the words she could not bring herself to say. She looked at Nathan and saw no judgment, no games, only truth. She whispered, "I do not want to lose everything I have worked for, but I cannot deny that you have changed how I feel. You saw me when no one else did. You gave me a chance when others shut the door. I do not know if I can risk this, but I cannot pretend it does not matter." Nathan rose to his full height, his gaze steady. "Claire, I will not force you. I will not let anything harm the career you are building, but know this. I am not walking away from you or your son. If you are willing to let me in, I will stand beside you." The room grew quiet again, but the silence was no longer heavy. Claire's heart raced, yet for the first time, she did not feel alone. Ethan climbed onto her lap, yawning. Claire held him close, her mind spinning with fear and hope. She knew the choice ahead would not be easy. But as she looked at Nathan, standing tall and unshaken, she felt a spark of courage rise inside her. The next weeks brought new challenges. Claire worked with more focus than ever, determined to prove her worth. She kept her distance from Nathan in the office, not wanting to give anyone more reason to whisper. Still, his presence followed her everywhere. Every time she looked up, she felt his eyes on her, steady and calm, giving her silent strength. The rumors grew stronger. Some co-workers claimed she had already been promised a promotion. Others said she was only safe because the CEO favored her. Claire ignored them, but inside the words hurt. She wanted to earn respect, not pity. One afternoon, during a large meeting with senior staff, the tension reached its peak. A manager stood and spoke in a sharp tone. "Sir, I must raise a concern. Some employees believe Claire has been treated differently. She was hired under unusual circumstances, and now she is being considered for promotion. This is causing unrest." The room went silent. Claire felt her stomach twist. She wished she could disappear. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but before she could, Nathan stood. "Enough," he said firmly. His voice filled the room, silencing every whisper. Looked around at each face, his expression cold and unyielding. "You say she was treated differently. You are correct. She was treated differently because she earned it. When others turned her away, she showed the courage to stand here anyway. When others gave excuses, she gave solutions. While some of you rely on comfort, she worked harder than all of you combined." Murmurs spread through the room. Nathan's eyes burned with intensity as he continued. "Claire has saved this company time and money with her insight. She has stayed late when others left. She has carried responsibilities beyond her role and never complained. Do not insult her work by calling it favoritism. If you believe she does not deserve her place here, then you have not been paying attention." Claire sat frozen, her cheeks warm, her heart pounding. She had never expected him to defend her so fiercely, and now every eye was on her again, but this time not with scorn. Nathan's voice dropped lower, but it carried even more weight. "Let it be clear. Claire earned her seat here. If anyone doubts her again, they will answer to me." The meeting ended in silence. People left with lowered eyes, and the whispers stopped, at least for the moment. Claire remained seated, overwhelmed by what had just happened. When the room was empty, Nathan turned to her. "I told you," he said quietly. "You did not need to fear their words. You only needed to stand strong." Claire's voice shook. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," he replied, "because it was the truth." That evening, the company held a celebration for the success of a major project. Claire had been a key part of the work, and she knew her efforts had helped make it possible. She stood quietly at the edge of the room, watching the laughter and chatter. She felt proud, yet uncertain of where she'd fit in. Then, Nathan approached. The crowd seemed to part as he walked toward her. He stopped in front of her, his eyes steady. "Claire," he said, "you deserve more than whispers and shadows. You deserve to be seen for who you are." Before she could reply, Ethan ran up, holding her hand.
Come on.
He said with excitement. "Did you tell him we are his friends forever?" The crowd chuckled at the boy's innocent words. Claire felt her face flush, but Nathan knelt beside Ethan, smiling warmly. "Yes, Ethan," he said, "forever." Was in front of everyone. He reached for Claire's hand. The room fell silent again, but this time with surprise, not scorn. "This is Claire," Nathan said clearly. "She is not only a part of this company, but also a part of my future. And this is Ethan, who will always be welcome wherever I am." Claire's heart raced. She wanted to pull her hand back, afraid of the stares, but the strength in Nathan's grip told her to stand tall. She looked at Ethan, who was grinning with pure joy, and she realized the truth. She was not alone anymore. The celebration continued, but Claire felt like the world had shifted. The rejection she had faced at the start was no longer her story. This was her story now, standing beside a man who saw her worth, holding the hand of her son who gave her purpose. As the night ended, Claire walked out of the building with Ethan in one hand and Nathan at her side. The city lights glowed above them, and for the first time in years, the future looked bright. She had been turned away for being a mother, but in the end, that very truth had led her to love, respect, and a new beginning.